Hi guys, welcome to another video, and in this video I am going to show you this beautiful product from Benchdogsuk UK. It's the hinge system for your MFT top, and I'm going to show you how you can use it, how you install it, the benefits of this thing versus other brands, and yeah, lots of features on this thing, so stick around. And if you like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I will really appreciate that. And now we're gonna go into the video. So to get started, you need a couple of things. You need a 30mm guide bush for your router. You can use any brand of router as long as you got a 30mm guide bush, then it's all good. You need a 20mm plunge bit so it can cut downwards. So it needs to have knives here. Then you need a hex key. This is for the router, and obviously your hardware. So how does it come? The actually hinge is two pieces, so it's the back part and the front part. And then you need this, or you don't need this. You can do it also with your other system that you can make MFT dog holes for your table. But Benchdogs provide this jig, and I will explain this jig, what you can do with this thing, and also for other purposes. It's quite handy, and it all makes sense later in the video. So before I will go on with the video, I want to explain you that this hinge isn't for one brand. This is one hinge that suits a lot of brands out there. So all these pinholes here allows you to have a certain track that fits a certain track. So yeah, it goes from Mafel, DeWalt, Triton, Festool, Makita, and so on. So a lot of brands will actually fit to this hinge system. Another thing is, if your bench isn't square, so if your dog holes aren't square, you can adjust this hinge system with a big square with your fence, so you still are able to get square cuts, which is, in my opinion, a really great feature. And that is actually, you can unscrew this pin, and that pin goes into this slot, and then you can adjust your track. Later in the video I'll explain you how you can do that, but to start off, it's a great thing to know, yeah, to have on your hinge system. Well, this is my setup, how I use my fence and my Benchdoguk with my track saw normally. I got a pair of clips from Xminister, and I clipped them on some docks in my workbench, and that will support my track. I have my fence. In this case, this is a Benchdoguk fence. It's the MK2 version with a right hand support. You can use any fence, but I don't know, I like this one. And as you can see here, I am already losing two dog holes because I need one to support my fence and one for my dog to support my track. And you can say, why don't you bring this dog towards there? That's gonna be quite hard, so you can't use these clips. As you can see, you will unclip it because it will push to any fence if you use a fence. So if you don't use a fence, you have a couple of Benchdogs here. And yeah, you can do square cuts in this situation, but if you want to do repeatable square cuts, I highly recommend get a fence, something like this. So as you can see here, between this dog here and my fence, I have 620mm, and in this system you can use this jig. Benchdogs supply this jig. So you can use this for your hinge system to install, but also to bring back your fence system towards the edge here. I will explain you that later in the video. So before you're going to install your hinge, you have to check if you're using a right side support. Install your whole fence and then locate where your hinge needs to come. So in my situation, I need to install my hinge here. You only need a 30mm bushing ring, and then yeah, just route out a 20mm hole here, and then you bring back your dog holes towards the edge. So as I mentioned before, we're gonna make more space on our actually MFT top. We're gonna bring these one back towards the edge, and we're gonna bring that fence, so this fence, towards the edge. So it's going to be bigger here, so I can do bigger cuts on my MFT top. So I have these one already done now, and as I said before, I'm gonna bring back my fence also, and I will gonna do these one also on 32 millimeters. You really can see if you screw this thing tight here that it comes up a little bit, so it clamps itself because of the quad locks that are actually being used to support it. So this is really sturdy already. Okay. Alright, so I have everything installed. It's now time to check out the track on the bolts. So this thing is actually for lots of brands that I already said before. So check out online if you want to know if your track saw is also capable for this hinge system. It's quite simple. There are some bolts here with some stainless steel thumb screws. You just put it in this track here, line it up this one, and then bring it towards the edge here, tight it up, and it works. Alright, so I have my track here. It's 1.40 meters, so it's a bit too long for my table. If you have a wall here, then you want to have a smaller one. Maybe you can cut one for your table, or you just buy the 1080 from Festool. But now, because I have the space here, I gonna do it. I'm gonna bring it more that way, and it stands. It works. So without any checking for squareness, without anything, I'm going to use my pin here, and I am going to check without any calibration on my hinge system how square this is against my fence, because that's basically what matters in this case. I have this big 600mm square, and here I push it against this fence, slightly against my track, make sure, yeah, it's all good. And I will check it with this what's it, thickness gauge, and I have it on 0.28 millimeters, which is for woodworking, I think, good enough. You have to be careful because you push your square off from your track. Just slightly Oh. It's perfectly square against my big 600 square. So now you're good to go, all set up, and now I be able to do square cuts, repeatable with my fence, and I gained around 200 millimeters between my fence and my front dog here. So I'm now able to do 720 millimeters in width, so it's going to be 750. So I gained like 15 centimeters, so 150 millimeters. So yeah, that's already a big plus for me. And let's go into a couple of more details about this hinge. You're also able to decrease the space here on the back, because if your workbench is against the wall, yeah, you want to work around maybe that, and I will show you how you can do that in a minute. So I got my fence also offset to the edge and my hinge system. But what you want to keep in mind, if you're using a Benchdoguk fence with a under rail on the track support bar here, this doesn't fit anymore, and this isn't just in line with the fence. So in the ideal world, so set your hinge on 48 and set your fence on 32. Then this bar will go just exactly in front of your hinge system. So this is how it looks from underneath. You got this really big stainless steel thumb screw with a good grip on it, so it even works with gloves. And yeah, you can play around in height. It's exactly the same system on the other side. So the limitation of cutting your sheets in thickness will be because of this. But as I mentioned before, you can countersink this in your bench, and then you don't have that anymore. And if you keep your hinge on the back behind your fence or your dogs that you pushing your stock towards, so if you push your sheets towards a couple of dogs on there or your fence and you keep your hinge behind that, then that doesn't matter. Then the only limitation of the height is this blade here. And if you countersink this in your workbench, then you have 0 limitations in height. But out of the box there is 5 millimeters. Is it right? 6 millimeters. So we got 6 millimeters of height here, which for me, I never cut underneath 12 millimeters. But if you do that, yeah, it's still a good reason to countersink this plate in your bench, and then yeah, no limitations. So if I will countersink this plate in my bench, I will gain, in my scenario, so now I have the space of 770 millimeters, and if I will countersink this, I have like 880 millimeters. So if your bench is smaller than this one, yeah, it will be a good reason to countersink this, and you gain more width between your fence and your front part. So that was actually the original setup, and there is another way to work around space problems. Imagine that if your workbench is against the wall, then you can do a couple of things to work around that. So if you got limitations on the back side of your workbench, for example, if you're standing against the wall with your bench, then there is another thing what you can do. You just take off your track, take off your front part, take off your back part, then get this on the front, get this on the back. Oop. tighten your screws up. Here there are calibration pins, pinholes with these pins. And as you can see, this is the middle one. So DeWalt is in the middle. And then you can go to the right and you can go to the left. If you go to the right, then you have it in the original setup that your hinge is on the back. But if you go to the other side, so if, for example, I go to this side, then you can use your track the other way around. So now, if I want to use my track, you have to do the same thing on the other side with your calibration slot pin. You can take this in, put it in here. This is good to go. Same thing here. Swap it over to the other slot hole. And as you can see, there's slightly bring it up a little bit, tighten this big thumb screw up, and then so on the back part now we have 58 millimeters, so that's the half of your hinge. This is a bigger track. You can make a sacrificial one, cut it on the right length, but for me it's fine because I'm going to use my hinge on the back, and then you don't have this piece here. So it's depending on brand, widthness, whatever you prefer. So you can use your hinge now also like this. It's not ideal, but it's a workaround with your front part on the back, so you have more space on the back. So you can still move around your stock, bring down your track, do your cut, bring it up, yeah. So if you want to bring this even more in, what you can do then, you just take out this plate towards these dog holes, or you use your original dog holes and offset this fence inside, so then you bring this more in. I'm not gonna do that on my bench, but to explain it, and I hope you get it. So if you want to gain more space on the backside and this bench is completely against the wall, then you can make this this part or the hinge, both sides works well, but this is obviously smaller, so maybe this is a good way to achieve it. Then take out material here, use your jig to offset these standard dog holes that way, and I would say do that 64 millimeters, and then offset your so I would say if you're gonna offset these holes that way, you want to use your hinge holes on 48 millimeters, and you want to set your fence on 64 millimeters, so you can use this underside rail support. If you want to keep it as how I am going to use it, in line like this, so this lays a little bit back here. So if you want to use your undermount rail support, you want to set your fence one step further away from the dog holes from your hinge system. So like this. If you're gonna do that, offset your hinge on 48 millimeters, offset your fence on 64 millimeters. Then you can use this. If you want to keep it as same as me, so in one line, this is a little bit more back, then what you do, you set them all off to 64 millimeters that way, so it's all in line, and then you're able to have this part completely in your bench. Yes, you're losing space on your cutting width here, but you can also make on the other side make an additional 2 dog holes outside your table with a little bit of support to bring your other part out, so you gain space in widthness. It's a workaround. It's not ideal maybe, but I think it works. It should be fine. I hope I covered everything that I wanted to say to you. Let me see. So, fence holes offset, under rail support, you need one step between your hinge and your fence, so you can use this. If you're all gonna do the same offset, you can't use this. You can use the front part on the back and the back part on the front. As you can see, still good. You can adjust the height, so from 6 millimeters to 105 mm in height, adjustable. Multiple tracks will fit in these slots here. If you don't have a square top, you can calibrate it by yourself to using this slot here. So don't use the standard slot holes. But if your dog holes are out of square, you can just take a big square, unscrew this pin, put it in your slot hole here, and then make it square, tight it up, good to go. You can take it off, put it on, do cuts, take it off, and yeah. So let me see. So I use my workbench for everything in my shop. I do all the glue ups on there. Just all the work that needs to be done. Sanding, I do that on my workbench. So I can't leave it on because I'll probably damage it, and not good. So I want to take it off, put it back on every time I need it. And just wanted to show you how long it takes to get this whole setup installed, and you're able to do repeatable cuts and square. So I'm gonna set on a timer. Are you ready? So let's start with our fence. Then I have everything in the sustainer. Alright, getting my track. And in this case, so with a little bit of more training, I can maybe do it in 1 minute, but 1 minute and 30 seconds is for me really ideal. It's perfect. So let's see if it's still square. Okay. Take the same one, 0.28. No space, no space, no space, no space. Go a little bit finer. Let's say we're gonna go the golden one. If he gets this one, it's a golden too. Let's see. No space. No space. No space. Maybe. No. Here I would say. No. Okay, one side up and down. Up and down. In the slot. Square. You can put it on 1 minute and almost 30 seconds. You have this whole setup and you can start building a cabinet.